Well, hello everybody and welcome to Lunch Break Live. Real talk about obesity, food addiction, recovery, and what's really eating you. I am Carrie De La Cruz back at you today with chapter 5 of my story. Wow, it has been a really long 4 days, not including weekends, don't you think? We have covered a lot of ground, and thank you guys for sticking with me because the shows have been longer than usual, I would say, and it's it's quite a sacrifice for you guys to make the time for me and spend that with me, 30 minutes, 35 minutes. I mean, that's incredible. So I am humbled and gratified that you guys are willing to share your time with me, but I am absolutely in awe of your willingness to work on yourselves and to claim the recovery that is so rightfully yours. So, yeah, that's the beginning of this story. Now, let me just tell you, today, even though it's chapter 5, it really is a standalone. I mean, it could be its own book, right? So, I mean, that's why I'm not going to go back and do a review of chapters 1 through 4. I'm just going to call this one, I'm going to let it stand on its own. So today is Resolute Recovery, Food Addiction. And this is my story of coming to terms with that and treating it and living with it. So let me just tell you, today it's been a heck of a week today. That's all I'm going to tell you. And if there was any day that I wasn't going to do a show, it was today. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so stressful. I don't have time to prepare. And it's just like the day job it's just killing me and all this stuff is going on and I'm blah, blah, blah. I don't feel like it. And then I realized, what better day to do a show about food addiction than a day that is filled with frustrations and reasons to be upset. It's been a really, really rough day. And so here's the cool thing. This is what I wanted to tell you. Despite the fact that it has been so hard today, I have never once felt like I wanted to eat about it. That's the message of recovery, you guys. No, I'm not special. I'm not more powerful or stronger than anybody else. Nothing like that, okay? I'm telling you, that is the gift of sober recovery, is that the gift that it gives me is peace in times of strife and the recognition that turning to food is not going to fix anything. And so I don't even consider turning to it, okay? That's what I want to share with you guys today. So let's see here. Let me begin by saying this, okay? Addiction is not about morality or legality or availability or accessibility or acceptability or usability or likability. That's a mouthful, don't you think? I dictated that in the car on the way to work in the rain. And I'll say it again because I think there's a lot of stuff in there that's pretty meaningful. Addiction is not about morality or legality or availability or accessibility or acceptability or usability or likability. And what I'm saying is a lot of people become very legalistic, or it becomes a morality discussion sometimes, or maybe it becomes a thing about being acceptable or accepted or unaccepted, whether it's illegal or legal, stuff like that. And all of those factors sometimes cloud our thinking of addiction, and it can confuse the subject. So I'm putting it out there. None of that stuff matters with what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today, because addiction is not about a substance. It is about a behavior. And if you try to argue or reason with it, it will always win and you will always lose. That's the insidious nature, as I mentioned yesterday, the insidious nature of addiction. Okay. Addiction makes you feel bad about yourself. And it makes other people feel bad for and sometimes about you. Sometimes people don't like addicts because they don't understand them. They think they're losers. They think they're lazy. They think they're worthless. They think they're doing it to themselves. Because you see, whether we want to believe it or not, we have our addiction all over everybody. Everyone takes on shrapnel when we are active in our addiction. absolutely everybody in one way, shape, or form. We're either unreliable, we're not there for them, we're hiding from them, we're not fully present because we're feeling so much shame. We're busy denying things, we're busy serving our addiction however possible. We may be lying, cheating, stealing to feed our addiction, whatever it is, okay? That affects absolutely everybody. And so it is that we feel bad about ourselves. Other people might feel bad for us, but chances are they feel bad about us, right? They don't have really good feelings about us. I mean, addiction is very confusing. It's confounding. It's hard to understand. It's baffling. Baffling, cunning, and powerful. Those are the words that are used in 12-step programs. You can be addicted to food. And don't tell me you can't be addicted to something you need to survive, okay? Because you don't need Twinkies or Doritos or French fries or cake. Ta-da! That's how I solved that problem. Addiction is destructive, not just to the addict, right? It affects everybody, see? So it's very, very destructive. There is no shame in being an addict. I'm not saying the addict is not ashamed, okay? I'm saying there's no shame in being an addict. There is only shame in not doing something about it once you know. And I promise you, your addiction is going to do everything in its power to make sure you don't know. Because addiction feasts on denial. It's self-preservation at its best. The addiction within you will do whatever it takes to keep itself alive, to keep it fed, to keep it in control and keep it in power. And denial is its greatest weapon. Denial. And we're going to go more into that. So, what I'm talking about today, and I think this is really, really important because I am not an expert on addiction. I am someone who is treating my addiction, and I'm willing to share with you what it looked like, what it sounded like, the things it said to me, the things I say to it, how it's been working for me, kind of the tools I use, the process, whatever. I'm sharing that with you, okay? But it's my personal journey. And so some of you guys may identify with what I'm saying, and some of you may not. And even if you identify with me, what I'm saying may not fit you. And that's why in recovery circles, they say, take what fits and leave the rest. Take what fits, leave the rest. If what I'm saying is not resonating with you, leave it, okay? If what I am saying does resonate with you, have hope and maybe consider what it is that I'm saying about the way in which I dealt with it, okay? All right, so let's see here. Let's launch right into it. All right, I'm going to go on record right now. I'm not calling anyone an addict. I'm just not doing it because obviously it's not my place to do that, and how would I know that? So I just think it would be foolish of me to call you an addict or whatever. Not only because I don't know you and I don't know your circumstances, but because I think also sometimes people don't like the word addict. They really hate it. They think it's limiting, defining, judgmental, or crippling. Did you get that? I mean, they're like, don't label me, don't define me. If you label me, then that means there's no hope for me, or that's an excuse. It's a crutch if you call me an addict. I don't want to get into all of that stuff. I don't want to get into whether you think it's a label or not, or whether you feel defined by it or not. I want to talk about hope and healing and recovery. That's all I want to talk about today. So, if you want, I'm going to talk about food addiction, and if any of this stuff resonates with you, but you don't like the word addict, you can just call it a problem, okay? Because if it's a problem, it's a problem. If it's a problem, it's a problem. I don't care what you call it a duck, okay? But if it's a problem, it's a problem. I choose to call my problem a food addiction. And people who wrestle with addiction are often referred to as addicts. That doesn't make me less of a person. I'm not a bad person because of that. That just happens to be what works for me in order to achieve recovery. Okay, so where do I start? Let's see. How did I figure out I had a food addiction? A lot of people ask me that question. My grandfather was in AA, and if you've read my book, I talk a lot about him in a section on recovery. He had like more than 20 years sober when he died. He was sponsor to a lot of alcoholics, and he helped them find hope and healing in their own lives. And so when I would go to his house and stuff growing up, my grandma and grandpa's house, there were signs everywhere, like, all of the AA slogans, Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program slogans. There was the Serenity Prayer, and there were little slogans, Easy Does It, which I always thought had something to do with driving because it was on his car. I didn't really. There were like a whole bunch of these slogans, bumper stickers, T-shirt kind of mottos, framed posters. And he had a full liquor cabinet. And, not all alcoholics do, but he had a full liquor cabinet. And if you came over to his house, he'd make you a drink. He'd serve you a drink. And he started offering me drinks from the time I was 7 years old. I guess he figured, little fur of the dog or get snake bit, right? And then, you won't want to do it, whatever. Well, one day, I was like 9, I said yes. I said, okay, I'll take a 7 and 7. What's in a 7 and 7? He's like 7 Up and another 7. So I'm like, okay. So he made me a drink, and I guarantee you he put way more 7 than 7. That thing was vile, wretched, and disgusting. And I hated it. I pushed it aside and kind of pretended to nurse it and whatever because I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but yuck. That's how I felt about alcohol. So I was like, oh, whew, no problem. I hate alcohol. So I'll never be an alcoholic, right? Easy. Sold. When I grew up, I learned that there were drug addicts. Well, I don't do drugs, so I can't possibly be a drug addict. Yay, no problem, not an addict. See, I don't have this problem. Same with smoking. I smoked for 3 years because everybody did it, and it's cool. And, I broke up with my boyfriend, and I thought I would show him how grown up I was by smoking. And, I thought I'd be cool, and on and on and on. But I gave it up. And I wasn't addicted to it. I gave it up and I moved on. Okay, so again, dodge the addict bullet. I'm not an addict. Yeah, that's what I told myself. Okay. But I didn't realize that you could have what they call process addictions. That's what psychologists and other addictionologists will tell you, process addictions. And that can be like being a shopaholic, a gambler, a sex addict, or even be addicted to exercise. These are like processes, behaviors. So those aren't substance related specifically. They're related to processes of doing things. And I did not know that, okay? And let me tell you, I was not addicted to gambling because I said I didn't like to take risk. Right, I took a lot of risk, just not gambling. But I loved to spend money that I didn't have. I loved credit cards. And I always spent more than I made. And yep, filed bankruptcy when I was really, really young. But I didn't realize that it was an addiction. It was a compulsion. It was an obsession. And it was only in later years that I realized, what did I have to do to curtail the behavior? Not get credit cards. Stay out of the mall. Stay out of places, kind of like an alcoholic stays out of a bar. I had to stay out of places where I was going to get that sensory overload. Like shopping, buy. And it was just like overwhelming. And I would get very depressed and I would say, I don't get to do that. I don't get to do that. And it was just awful. So for a lot of years, I stayed away from it all entirely. Now, during Christmas, I have to, stay focused and remember the purpose. Why am I here? I call it divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. You're not here for all of that stuff out there. You're here for this reason. Thank God for Amazon. Anyway, so I do know now that I had a shopping addiction, a spending addiction. I did not know it then because, again, I didn't understand process addictions. Let's see here. I didn't realize that I was an addict until long after my bankruptcy. And like 45, I'm like 45 by the time I figure out I have a problem with food. I have an addiction to food. I mean, I had no idea, right? And part of this is because I hope I'm not jumping ahead. When you're no longer actively dealing with your obesity, it's like I'll always treat my obesity because it's a disease, okay? But when I'm no longer actively obese, how can I have a food addiction problem? Because I had always equated obesity with, once I figured out that there was food addiction at all. And so that wasn't me, right? If I'm not obese, I can't be an addict. That was the thought process. But guess what? Not all food addicts are obese. And not all obese people are food addicts, which makes this even trickier, okay? All right, so I learned about Overeaters Anonymous, OA. It's a food program based on the 12-step program based on Alcoholics Anonymous. And I knew about it because my mom had attended the program. Sorry, Mom, didn't mean to out you, like during the early 70s or whatever. But I thought it was like a diet program. I thought that OA was like TOPS, taking off pounds sensibly, or like Weight Watchers or any other program where you lose weight. And that's why everybody's there. I thought you went to OA because you wanted to lose weight. And again, if I didn't need to lose weight, why would I go to OA? Do you see what I'm saying? The disease perpetuates itself through plausible deniability. It loves to lie, and the lies are so easy to believe. It's like, yep, I don't have a problem. No problem. Maybe I just have a willpower problem. Yeah, okay, that's what I said. All right. What's next? What's next here? I hope this is making sense to you guys. Can't separate my pages. Okay. Now, Overeaters Anonymous has the word overeaters in the title. And remember, yesterday I said I wasn't an overeater, what I perceived to be an overeater, which was like a competitive volume eater at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Didn't matter that I overate on Twinkies and Zingers and crap, right? That's overeating. Well, I was looking at it as like a volume issue, like a quantity instead of just a quality issue. And so I figured, yeah, I can't be an overeater because I don't overeat. But I was compulsive, and I was obsessive, and I was impulsive. I would dream about food. Food would call my name. It would scream at me. It occupied every corner of my mind. I would try to focus on, something, task at hand, but every other part of my brain was occupied by whatever it was, the frosting in the fridge, the fresh cookies that had been baked and, Hannah left a few behind and took the rest to work, or the slice of cake, or whatever it was. That was screaming at me, calling me. And I mean, it got to the point where it'd be like, is anybody going to eat that? Is anybody going to eat that? Are you going to eat that? Oh my God, will somebody just eat that, right? I mean, that's a little compulsive. Yeah. And that's a clue. That should have been a clue, right? But if you didn't, if you don't understand food addiction, and if people are out there telling you can't be addicted to something, you need to survive, and you believe that food, all sorts of food, you need it to survive, and you don't realize that the stuff you're most likely addicted to is the crap that you really don't need to survive, then again, that's perpetuating the myth. It's reinforcing your beliefs, and you look to the left and you look to the right, and people are like, no, you can't be addicted to food. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Well, here's a clue for you. How many food addicts say they are just out of control and can't gain control, and they feel helpless? Have you ever said that? I feel out of control. I just feel like I'm powerless. I can't control it. I'm out of control. Someone who doesn't have an addiction to food, not likely to say that kind of stuff. They may say, you know what, I've been lazy and I haven't been enforcing my own rules, or I haven't been saying no, or I can do just fine. Like my husband. You know what, I just haven't decided I want to do better, but when I decide to cut back, I do. No, those words are foreign. That concept is foreign to an addict. But control is a really big issue. And one that's not limited to addiction, by the way, because what do I talk about on my show all the time? It's just one more area of our lives where we need to control it, or it will assert control over us. It's one way or another, right? It's either going to control us or we're going to control it. And the thing is, it's like nailing Jell-O to a wall. You can never control it. Never. But you're always convinced that somehow, some way you just will. White knuckling, right? What I did for 6 years after surgery. So I knew about AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and OA, Overeaters Anonymous, and 12-step programs, but I was convinced that because I had weight loss surgery, I would be judged, ridiculed, and rejected if I tried to go to a meeting. They don't accept you. If you've had weight loss surgery, you can't go to a meeting because everybody will sit there and they'll judge you, and you go, you know what, you can't be here with us because you had weight loss surgery. Uh-huh. Ever heard that? Ever said that? Ever believed that? Well, I did. I believed that, and that's what kept me out of the rooms for 2 years. See how that works? It was my addiction wanting me to believe that there was no help for me. And it was telling me that I would be denied help if I tried, so don't even try. I didn't realize it then, but that's exactly what was going on there. And I didn't try to get help for 2 years. Because, why? I would be denied help. Lie. It's an absolute out-and-out lie. Anybody in those rooms is there because they're working their own program. Not because, and if they're pointing their finger at you, they're not doing their work. That's just it. Doesn't matter. We're all there for a reason. We all have an issue, a struggle, a problem with food. Whatever brought us there, whatever shape we are, whatever size we are, whatever. Our business is to do our work. It's not to judge others and decide whether or not they're doing their work, okay? And that's something you learn, but I didn't understand that. I just believed that I was going to be judged and I was going to be kicked out, and that would be that, and I wouldn't be able to get help. So it kept eating away at me as I ate away at it. But I couldn't stop eating certain things once I started. I mean, this really is the essence of it. No matter how many promises I made to myself, no matter how often I said I would change, no matter how often I claimed that I just had to use willpower and self-control, each time I didn't stop. I beat myself up more and more, and I felt like a fraud. Why can't I just do this? I'm smart. Why can't I just do this? I'm capable. Why can't I just do this? Why can't I get a hold of this? Why can't I get control of this? I was a loser, and I hated the way I felt about myself. And of course, now that I didn't look obese, how could I possibly have a problem? No one would believe me. No one would help me. I was ashamed. Oh, that was such a big word. Ashamed. And no one I knew could understand what I was going through. They just didn't understand it. They thought I was foolish and stupid and weak and just looking for excuses. That's what I decided. It wasn't blatantly true. That's, painting with an awfully broad brush, don't you think? That's what I believed. And again, that's the addiction protecting itself with denial. You can't get help. You're not worthy of help. You can't do it. You don't need help anyway. You just need to do better. But you can't because you're not worth it. See how that works? Addiction feels horrible. It feels horrible. The pain is excruciating. The highs are so high, but the lows are so low. Until the highs aren't high enough anymore, but the lows are even lower. Any of this sound familiar to you guys? At some point in addiction, there's no upside to the addiction. It just hurts, and there's never any help. So we keep eating more, hoping. It's like they talk about the drugs, right? You build up a tolerance to drugs, and so you have to use more drugs. It's the same thing with food, I promise you. But it doesn't stop us from throwing food at it, right? Even though we don't get any relief. And that's when, by the way, people turn to things like alcohol. Hello, right? They say, well, I couldn't eat anymore after weight loss surgery, so ... I didn't realize I could ever be an alcoholic because I didn't like alcohol, ... I've heard this story. And you know what? Don't be saying that I'm out here judging or wagging my finger or shaming anybody. I'm not. You know if you have a problem. But if you don't have a problem, don't tell someone else who does have a problem that they don't have a problem. All right? That's kind of my rule here. If you think you have a problem and it's affecting your life negatively, do not look for other people to confirm that you have a problem or affirm that you have a problem or, give credibility to your problem. Because there are many, many people who don't have a problem with this, and unfortunately they'll say it's not a problem since they don't have a problem. If you have a problem, it's your problem. That's it. We don't need to get approval from anyone to have a problem. All right. Once I didn't have my weight to blame, this is kind of the key thing here, right? Once I didn't have my weight to blame, my addiction became much more clear to me. Because when you're obese and you don't acknowledge that you might be addicted to food, you can just say that you're an overeater, or you don't have willpower, or you don't have time to eat right, or you can't exercise, or whatever. There's all kinds of things you can point to that have nothing to do with food addiction that can explain your obesity. But when you don't have obesity to blame anymore, and you're doing all of those other things, quote, right, what does that leave you with if you still have a problem? Because when there are no longer issues that are on the table, no longer excuses, and you come face to face with what the reality of addiction really is, again, not a substance. Addiction is a behavior. It's an attitude. It's a feeling. It's a lie. I just got chills. Once you're left with that, once you realize it's not about the food, once you realize it's not about control or power, and it's not about shame, and it's not about someone believing you or understanding you, it's not about any of that stuff. It's a lie. And once you stop believing the lie, you can get help. Okay? Can you continue to believe a lie once you know it's a lie? So let's take it out of the realm of addiction. Once you find out that something is a lie, can you keep believing it? I'm going to say no, not really. And yet, isn't that what we do with addiction? We continue to believe it when we know it's a lie until we decide to face it. Can you continue to behave in a destructive way once you know that it won't make you feel better? A lot of us did with our obesity. A lot of us do. We continue to behave in destructive ways even though we know it's going to hurt us, don't we? We continue to overeat. We continue not to exercise. We continue to do things to assault our bodies even though we know we're going to hurt ourselves, don't we? Can you continue telling yourself that this time will be different, even though the last 1,000 times were not different? Okay, maybe one time out of 1,000 was. But it was an aberration, you guys. It was a one-time thing. Can you continue telling yourself this time will be different? I was finally on to me. At some point, I was done believing the lie because I knew it was a lie. And I was done wanting to be destructive to myself and hurt myself and realize that I would never, ever feel better. And I was done believing myself when I said this time will be different. I was just done. I was on to me. I was on to the lie. And you know what? I couldn't keep denying anymore because doing that would just be crazy. That's kind of where I put it. Addiction did not fit anymore because eating didn't make me feel better. It made me feel worse. It's like trying to put on those pants I held up the other day and trying to pretend they fit, but they don't. They don't fit. And it's a lie. And anyone looking at me would say, those don't fit. Why would I say, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. I don't have a problem. They're fine. They're fine. Yeah, that's what it's like. Addiction. It didn't fit anymore. None of that stuff I had done fit. So I finally admitted that this time would not be different unless I did something different. And that different thing wasn't going to be to stop once I started. See, I kept thinking this time will be different. I'll just stop once I start. That wasn't the different thing that I needed to do. This time would be different because instead of not stopping, I would not start. Got it? See, I kept saying this time will be different, meaning I would stop once I started, and I never did. But if you don't do anything different, then nothing ever changes, right? So this time I said, the thing that I'm going to do different is I'm not going to start. And I didn't die. I'm still here. I did not die. Crazy, isn't it? And that's the really big thing. I did not die when I decided not to start. I know it seems simple when someone says it. Someone's sitting here, someone like me sitting here, and I'm just telling you, look, just don't start and then you won't have to stop. And everybody's like, yeah, it's really easy for you to say. No, it's not. It's just something that I finally accepted. You can't, you guys, if it's a lie and you know it's a lie, you can't believe it. If it doesn't fit, then stop trying to pretend that it does fit because it just doesn't. And stop believing the lie that you'll die without whatever X, because it's just not true. It's a lie. Okay, let me tell you about a little bit more about my experience with OA as I close in on it, going long. Overeaters Anonymous helped me to find sober recovery. Now, I had been living recovery, which was addressing all of those things, you know, all the stuff I talked about in the first 4 episodes, all the stuff that I talk about in the program every day, day in and day out. That's what recovery looks like. You can be in recovery and not be sober. Ever heard of a dry drunk? It's a person who doesn't drink, but maybe they're not in recovery because they didn't address the stuff that fed, you know, that was the reason they drank. So now they're just angry. They're not dealing with stuff. They're not drinking, but they're not in recovery. Well, I was in recovery, but it's like kind of like saying, but I was still drinking. I know that sounds really weird, but I finally decided it was time to be food abstinent, to be sober, to live my sober recovery. And all I had to do was read the first page of the book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions of Overeaters Anonymous. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions of Overeaters Anonymous. It's like $12 on Amazon. You can also buy it used if you want to get it cheaper, okay? I would encourage you, if you think you have a problem, get it. I saw myself on page 1. That was it. I only had to read page 1 to say, oh, that's me. And there's something wonderful about seeing yourself in print, because if someone put it in print, that meant that there was more than one person on the planet with the problem. First of all, they had the problem, right? And they weren't just writing it for themselves, so a lot of people had the problem. So once I saw myself on that page, and I just kept turning the pages, and just going, being more and more understood. And isn't that what we talk about when we talk about addiction, is the frustration, the need, the desire, the hunger, the craving to be understood. You want to be understood, just look on the pages there. It's right there in black and white. It was for me anyway. They were discussing me on that page and a lot of pages after that. And there was freedom in the 12 steps if I wanted to work for it. Freedom isn't free, right? You've heard that? You got to work for it. You got to earn it. Well, was I willing to do it? Yeah, I thought I might be. Yeah, that sounds really convincing, doesn't it? But you see, I'm a perfectionist. A recovering one now, thank you, but I'm a perfectionist. So you can imagine what happens when you tell a perfectionist that everything will be fine and there's just 12 little steps. 12 little steps. Oh, I have to do all 12 of them or else I won't be okay. And I can't do all 12 because, oh my gosh, I can only do like 4 of them or 5 of them. And oh my gosh. If I can't do all 12, then I can't be in recovery. Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, that's not true. The more you do, the better you feel, and the more peace you have. There's certain steps that you kind of have to do, though, I got to say. But, you know, you don't all necessarily have to start all at the same time, all at once. You work towards them. That's why it's called work, you guys. You work on it. You work toward it. And you can decide, you know, as a perfectionist, whether you want to do all of them right now at the same time or whether it's something you're going to work on. So basically, I did the sobriety hokey pokey. 1 foot in, 1 foot out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, 1 step in, 2 steps out, right? You got, oh my gosh. And I would say, okay, I got this step, but I don't have that step, so I'm not going to do any steps. It was really crazy making. Okay, I'm only saying it once this show. That was for 2 years I did that. And then one magical day in December of 2013, I finally said, enough is enough. Is enough is enough. I was tired of waging a battle with something I always lost. And it's no fun if you always lose. I was tired of telling myself that I could not live without this. Or couldn't live without that. Or what would I do if I couldn't have this? How would I live without that? You know what? Again, lies, the lies of addiction. That was the day, December 30th, when I woke up and said, wait a minute. It has nothing to do with what I can't live without. I can't live with it anymore. I cannot live with the addiction of not being sober. I cannot live with that anymore. And guess what? That's a lot more to live with than trying to live without Twinkies or whatever else. That was the first step, the recognition, the realization that I can't live with it. That was more important than not being able to live without it. I was tired of the feeling. It's exhausting, you guys. It's absolutely exhausting chasing this thing all the time and always being behind the curve. You know, it's always something you're chasing and you never catch, and then it's always chasing you. It's really, really weird. I was really tired of turning to food to solve some problem I was having in life. I mean, that's what we do. We turn to food when something's going on in life. Oh, I've been having such a hard time. I mean, life has just been so rough. And I mean, there's just, you know, I lost my job, or I've been having money problems, or somebody got sick, or somebody died. I mean, these are all very real things, you guys. This is called life. You know, that's what we learn to do, is we learn to deal with life on life's terms instead of trying to feed it. Because here's the thing. Even though all that stuff is going on, eating it doesn't change it. And it doesn't make it feel better. There's a lie for you. Okay? I can't do it because life is just so hard. I just can't. I can't. Yes, you can. Because doing that is making your life harder. When you want to make your life more manageable, I mean, look, you need every ounce of energy you have to deal with the death of somebody in your life. You don't need to be diluting it by turning to food. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't help you to cope with life. It makes it harder to cope with life. That's truth, guys. That's truth. Here are some hallmarks to addictive behavior, okay? These are how they manifest in my own life. And when I start seeing these behaviors, or I have these thoughts or whatever, I know, you know, danger. Okay, that could be a problem for me. First of all, let me see. All right. Yeah, let me do this first, and then I'll wrap it up. Okay. I'll be in the store, and I'll be like, ooh, that looks really good. Wow, I should buy that. No, move along, move along, move along. If I'm starting to say that looks really good, I should buy that. Nope. Sometimes I'll say to myself, tell you what, if you still feel that way about it next time you walk through, we'll talk about it again. Usually I say, move along. Just keep right on moving. But that's that little tantalizing thought process. That looks really good. I should buy that. I'll just buy it this once, because it's on special. I've never had it. They didn't have this before I had my surgery. Oh, that looks so good. I haven't had that in a really long time. Nope. Doesn't matter, because it's not just this once. How about just this once we don't buy it? Let's see how that goes. Yeah. That tasted so good. I want more. Oh, I can't wait till I get to have that again. Is there more of that in the fridge? I think there's more of that left. You start thinking about it, obsessing about it, right? Romanticizing it and just going, oh my gosh, that tasted so good, it tasted like more. That could be a problem, guys, right? Red light, no, stay away, stay away, stay away. One more won't hurt. Yes, it will.